Welcome to TWMP Daily. I'm Scott Faughn, joined by a very special guest, Susan Klein, Missouri Right to Life, one of the most influential people in all of politics in this state. Thank you so much for making the time to join us.
Thank you, Scott. I'm glad to be here. Always glad to talk with you.
Well, if I were you, see, when people say I'm not the kind of guy to say I told you so, well, I am the kind of guy to say I told you so. If I were you, I would be saying I told you so everywhere. That's why I text you, because I remember setting up in the gallery beside you. We kind of have a similar spot called out. Because frankly, it's just mostly you and me a lot of times, not a lot of people up there. And I watched you for years make the point that Missouri could defund Planned Parenthood if they wanted to. It was up to the state to decide. And there was talk of waivers, there was talk of taking this to court, all these different things. Well, a lot of folks, serious folks that I think are very pro-life, disagreed with you. Or they wasn't willing to take the chance on what would happen to the Medicaid program. Well, it went all the way to the United States Supreme Court. As it turns out, you were right.
Well, I know you want to take a victory lap.
It's not mine.
Well, I know, but I'm not that
I personally thought you might have been right, might have been wrong, but I at the time I said, well, this is a big chance to take.
It was.
You were consistent with this, if we can defund Planned Parenthood ourselves, and then the court said you were right.
Well, Missouri is a show-me state. I think that we have led the way on multiple bills and issues in preserving and protecting women and babies.
All the way back to Webster versus Missouri.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, for a long time, Missouri was able to defund Planned Parenthood through the budget process. And we didn't have to deal with the FRA. We didn't have to deal with the issues of, we had not funded the abortion industry for years. And we needed to find a new way to do that. And that was the specific program that was doing it and allowing for funding of Planned Parenthood. So Missouri Right to Life did a lot of legal analysis leading up to that, looking at whether we could actually defund Planned Parenthood. And we came to the conclusion that we could and that we wanted to try.
Who does your legal analysis? What's that like inside Missouri Right to Life?
We have multiple legal attorneys in the state as well as in Washington.
Do you have like one here in the state you use as your go-to, or is it a secret thing? I don't want somebody to have their name disclosed. But
they have day jobs, So I mean, they're known as our either legislative director, which is Ed Grewatch, or in the past our general counsel, and right now Ed is serving as that as well. But there are other attorneys that we run it off of, and just kind of bounce it and see, what if this, what if that, based on the language that we're seeing out of the courts. How can we go around that? So, so that's what we did, and we believed that that Missouri could defund Planned Parenthood in the Medicaid program and still get the Medicaid dollars. It didn't have to be an either or. So because of that legal analysis, we took a position on that the FRA needed to include language. It was really one sentence that any entity that does abortions would not receive funding. So so that was a big issue for us because when you look at how many lives are lost based on the amount of money that Planned Parenthood says they don't use for abortion, but it subsidizes their abortion industry.
That was the crux of your argument. Essentially, was Missouri did not fund abortions at this time. However, Planned Parenthood offers a few other services, and they do bill for those, theoretically at a profit, and they could take the profits they made off that and invest it in their abortion coverage. Is that correct?
Correct, but it's kind of like all of us. It's like you put your money in your budget wherever it needs to go, but that allows it to be, other monies to be open for other things. So if they're, putting their money, to pay payroll or lights or whatever, that allows for their abortion industry, the abortion, part of their business to grow. So, we didn't want them to receive any money. They're killing babies in that facility, and they didn't need our tax dollars to do it. If we always say, if you want to do that kind of business, don't do it with our money. Now, obviously, Missouri Right to Life goes beyond that. We want to save the babies, in any way possible.
Before we move off, I want to talk about the next phase of Amendment 3 and overturning that. But so currently in the Missouri budget, Planned Parenthood, if they do things like a pap smear or some general health care that they promote that they do, Missouri currently Medicaid program would pay for that, correct?
In 2024, FRA came back for a renewal, and then Budget Chair Representative Cody Smith had a bill, 2634, I believe was the number, and it did put in that bill defunding of Planned Parenthood. That the state
currently
would
it's defunded.
not. Correct. Yeah. Well, prior to last year's Amendment 3, there's still some question, on where we are at today. But
so right now, I would say I know there's been another court challenge and on, but the Supreme Court, which you would think is where these things get settled at the end of the day. I mean, it took 7 years, it sounds like, from the time South Carolina started this to get to the Supreme Court and get a decision. Is there something Missouri needs to do right now to not fund Planned Parenthood, or have they done what they need to do in 2014?
Well, based on the U.S. Supreme Court decision, we have in our statute the defunding of Planned Parenthood, but we're going to be looking to see if we need to go a little further with the language than what we have now, and look at if we need to change something in the next legislative session. We'll be asking legislators to look at that. So our attorneys
I guess
are
this
looking
just
at that
happened.
right now. It did.
A couple weeks ago, then 4th of July, and it
Right.
probably takes a second.
Yeah.
But it would appear to me that the arguments against being able to defund Planned Parenthood, the Supreme Court has made those moot. And if you want to do it, you can. Which I assume the people that get elected in this General Assembly will want to do that.
I think so. I mean, that's what the majority of them campaign on.
I never took it as they were wanting to protect Planned Parenthood. I always took it as they were truly concerned about the policy impacts it could have on the Medicaid program.
I agree. We weren't there to beat them up on, just you don't want to defund Planned Parenthood. We thought you could do both. You could still get the Medicaid dollars. I mean, the Washington was going to have to make some decisions and do some steps in the process, which would have given the legislative body another opportunity to relook at it if they did take away our Medicaid funding. So we weren't looking at they wanted to continue funding and then, didn't care about the other, and neither did we. I mean, we cared about people getting whatever dollars they were committed, committed to, but we could do both. We didn't have to, fund Planned Parenthood to keep our Medicaid dollars.
Am I wrong in my assumption? I don't follow all that closely, but my casual assumption has been there are a lot of people in this country and in this state that are very pro-choice. A lot of wealthy people, frankly, that write checks to Planned Parenthood. I assume it's also a tax deduction. I don't know the details of it, but they're able to. Planned Parenthood. I watched the campaign last summer and fall. I mean, they have a lot of money. The pro-abortion argument has a lot of money. My assumption is that they could fund Planned Parenthood through a lot of donations, and probably to some part already do, right?
They could,
but it's their money.
But if they can get our money to do it and
why
not have to use their money, it's kind of like shuffling the pocket again. They can use that money for some other liberal project that they want to do. So, so they don't need our money.
See, that's my thought. I don't think, of course, it also legitimizes them to get taxpayer money just like any other hospital would. I get why they do it. Plus, I think Donald Trump said if you can get a tax abatement on real estate development in New York, you do. I get why they do what they do, but my gut is they don't have to have it. I think are they still in business without it?
Well, that's yet to be seen. Because the state is going to defund Planned Parenthood, already has. The federal government is going to defund Planned Parenthood, already did in the big beautiful bill. We'll see what the court case that was filed today, I guess, against the big beautiful bill on defunding Planned Parenthood. So Planned Parenthood spends a lot of money, which obviously we've given them money, so they're using our own money against us when they file a lawsuit against the state or the federal government. So there's no reason for us to fund somebody else to fight against what we're trying to do, which is not use tax dollars to kill innocent human babies.
All right, let's talk about next summer. You spearheaded a House joint resolution, maybe it was a Senate, one of the two, it was a joint resolution, to put something on the ballot that would essentially countermand Amendment 3 with a few changes to the old policy. Now, in my gut, it struck me that your average Missourian, number one, doesn't really like to talk about abortion, if you really want to break it down. It's not their preferred dinner table conversation. but the average Missourian might have been a little more pro-choice than the old law. Am I wrong?
I don't necessarily agree with you.
Okay.
Because if you look at when Dobbs overturned Roe, that
Mm-hmm.
was in June of 22. We were coming into the August and November elections
Yep.
of 22.
Yep.
They could have voted out conservative Republicans who, are pro-life.
And are very vocal about being
and,
pro-life. You're
very,
right.
very much so. You can also look at the last 25 years, in conservative Republican leadership.
Why do you think that is?
Because people do care. They don't sit around their table maybe and talk about it all the time, but that's why
abortion
that's
is
why
an
they have
uncomfortable
Missouri Right
topic,
to Life.
frankly, right? I mean, it's I mean, you're against it in part because it's something that you don't believe in, because it is a little bit. I mean, to me, the whole topic is something that makes regular folks a little uncomfortable. Like, if we were having dinner at Steve's in Taos tonight, people at the table probably aren't talking about this because it is an uncomfortable. I mean, I think even an abortion, I know there's some folks that say abortion is good. I know two people who had an abortion. It is not a light topic to them. It is a serious, somber thing. I have no idea if they could go back, if they would do it again. That's never something I felt comfortable asking, but I will say this. It is not something they walk around flippantly talking about. I mean, it's a serious, tragic thing. Regardless of how it turns out, both women I know felt like it was a tragic situation. I wonder, though, I'm with you. The scoreboard showed. When was Dobbs overturned? June?
June of 2022.
They had elections in November, and frankly, this state, and I think around the country, pretty much returned the same congressional makeup, and in the state legislature, the exact same state legislative makeup was returned, which, I mean, when you're the supermajority of Republicans, I mean, Brad Crist is within what? As the crow flies 4 miles from Busch Stadium? I mean, the Republican supermajorities are enormous in this state. They were returned in equal numbers. So this state did not, at the ballot box when they were picking their candidates, they did not have a pushback on abortion. It just didn't happen.
That's right. But I will tell you, even though people don't sit around their table and talk about it all the time, it is one of their top priorities. When they go to the voting poll and go into that booth, they are going to look for Missouri Right to Life's PAC's endorsement, and whether that candidate or incumbent has been with us on
I think it's just a plain fact. I don't think regular folks, especially Republican primary voters that go to church, I don't think they sit and read every vote. I don't think people have time for that. Raising the kids, I don't think they talk about it a lot, but I do believe they're pro-life, and I believe it is one of their top things they vote on. And I just think it's a plain fact. And anybody that disagrees, I don't know what their fact would be to say the Missouri Right to Life endorsement isn't still the most influential political endorsement in Missouri politics. It is the most influential thing in a primary for the supermajority party. I don't understand how you could factually look at politics, pro-choice, pro-life, whatever your perspective is, and say that endorsement isn't the single most influential thing. If you were running for office today in Missouri, in a Republican primary, the first thing you'd pick is you'd want that endorsement.
I agree, but I don't think it's just.
And there's others that are valuable. I got a Farm Bureau hat on. That's a valuable endorsement.
Right. It is.
But I'm not sure you could really quantify Missouri Right to Life as a valuable endorsement.
It is. I absolutely believe it is, and it's not just because I work for MRL.
I don't work for MRL. It's what it is.
It is the most important endorsement because I think people look to Missouri Right to Life. They trust us, and we take that trust very seriously. We don't make voting records. All we do is report them. We look at the issues that entail the outcome of what that voting record looks like. But it's not done lightly either.
I want to dig into how that endorsement works because you were in the studio. It's probably been 2 years ago, a year ago. I don't know how long.
Been that long?
And the number one thing from any interview I did all summer and fall was candidates would ask me about, okay, I watched your interview, and I think they sought it out. Even folks that maybe don't typically watch the midweek update, because they want to know about that because it impacted them. They were selfishly wanting the endorsement. I want to get to that, but I don't want to skip over. So you have the thing that'll be on the ballot to overturn Amendment 3. Amendment 3 is the amendment that legalized abortion, overturned all the pro-life laws that have been passed. That amendment. When do you want that on the ballot, and what is the process for when? Will it be August or November it goes on the ballot?
So let me go through the process.
Yeah.
So, after November of 2024, Missouri Right to Life began to look at, what are we going to do? We didn't lose by much. If you looked at the polls
Sure.
from July of 24
And you
up
really
to
closed
right
well.
before, we were sitting at 28, 38%
Yeah.
because people were hearing lies from the abortion side about that people couldn't get care for miscarriage or ectopic pregnancy. They were lies. Absolutely, women could have got care for miscarriage and ectopic pregnancy. So we moved the polls by getting the truth out there from July to November to almost winning. We were down at 28, 38%, and we moved to losing by 1.6%. So that's huge. Pollsters look at that and they're amazed that we could move the polls whenever we were up against $30 million on the abortion
Well,
industry.
I felt, though, I didn't feel much of a campaign, if you want the truth, until sometime around middle September. It really was. And then I noticed churches started breaking that fourth wall. They're always told you can't be involved in anything political or it's bad. I watched a lot of churches say, well, we'll take our chances. I watched a church community get engaged, and I watched some of those numbers come, because I think there's a lot of folks who do not have, every election is decided by the folks that don't live and die with the issues, right? I do think a lot of folks that maybe if they didn't care that much one way or the other, they see in a person that they respect, most in a community, a lot of the folks that are the top leading citizens are very faithful to church. I watched that close very well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know you have said too that the pro-life community wasn't together, and I disagree with that adamantly, because we were having monthly meetings with every pro-life group in the state as well as across the United States.
That's the second topic I want to address on
Yeah.
this, but I don't want to leave it before currently the HDR that you supported.
Correct.
The two questions on that. When do you want it on the ballot?
We prefer, and this is through polling. We've looked.
Yeah.
We did
When
polling
do you have the
all
best chance
along
to
the
win?
way in the development of the language. Where are Missouri citizens at? And we looked at the best opportunity for us to win.
Yeah, sure.
Is November of 2026.
Why is November better than August? Because if you'd have just asked me, my gut would have told me August might be better.
I think it's because it's a general election. Most people are going to go out and vote in a general. They're okay with who comes through the primary, unless it's a contestant primary. And Missouri Right to Life PAC says, hey, you've got to get out and vote. We're going to turn out the vote.
If you care enough to care who won a primary for a state, you're going to vote November.
You're going to vote
You're
November.
that plugged in. So
Yeah.
you think a bigger electorate gives you a better chance to pass. If you'd have just asked me, if we leaned on the fence post, I think I would have said I thought August was better. Why do you think? You think the larger electorate's better?
It is. And actually, realistically, November of 28 would have been a better election. But midterm, hopefully there's a lot of good things that happen out of the Trump administration.
Let's be honest.
And yeah,
You're going to have, there's going to be an election in 28 on this. If you lose, something tells me you don't say, well, we tried, it's over. And if you win, something tells me Mallory doesn't say, well, we tried, it's over. This debate's not over. It's just the next battle, right?
right. And yeah, obviously we want to win.
Sure.
And what's at stake here is women's protection for women, protection for children, and saving babies. So,
Is
but
that going
you're
to be
right.
to me the message though? I watched legislators fight very hard and give up other things that were priorities to them to keep language about trans kids in there. Essentially, what you can't, it put it in the Constitution that you can't do a trans surgery on a child. Is that what it is?
Yeah, well, you can't on a minor child.
Yeah.
Transgender mutilation really is what it
Sure.
is, or
Is it what?
hormonal treatments. So allow that child to grow older. And
There ain't many
decide
folks
for
in
themselves.
Dexter think you are to be messing with a kid while they're growing up like that. I think that is your heart goes out. I have had folks stop me in the hall at the Capitol or the Rotunda and tell me stories that are heartbreaking. But I'll just tell you this: I can't put myself in their shoes because it's such a foreign concept to me. Let's be honest with you. I just grew up a hillbilly from West Butler County. I can't get my mind where they are, but I can feel sorry for a parent dealing with something like this. But boy, I tell you, there's a lot of dumb things I thought at 13 that by the time I got to 18, I didn't want to do. There's also some things I thought at 13 that I thought at 18 that I think at 45. But them 5 years, I mean, I tell you, I just think regular folks in this state, whether even there's pro-choice people that are like, you know, the trans thing is odd, which maybe I'm odd, right? I mean, hell, probably am.
Well,
but with the kid part, I think that's got to be like an 80-20, maybe higher issue, right?
and we polled on that, and it is it's pretty high. It's up there.
Did you need that part in this HJR to pass this at the ballot?
We didn't.
Does that get your 1%
we
back?
did no, because we were already above the 50% with all the other issues. But the issue
I think you need it
is
to get
Planned Parenthood calls it reproductive health, reproductive freedom.
I think you need it.
So
I do. I think it was I think if your top priority in the General Assembly was to overturn Amendment 3, I think if you win, that'll be a major reason why.
I think it would be.
And I think a lot of people agree with me because they fought awfully hard to keep that in there.
Well, and
the other side fought awfully hard to get it out.
We spent money polling on it.
And the other side fought awfully hard to get that out. I think you wouldn't have had to PQ this if you'd removed that language.
Well, and that was not our goal. I mean, it was never an issue for whether it was there or not there. Obviously, when we polled on it and it was positive, and Planned Parenthood said it's part of reproductive health care, you know, protecting women, children, and babies is what this new Amendment 3 is going to do. It is actually truly going to protect women.
And you
children,
have
and babies.
the change from the 2018 laws, right? To this thing that somebody said it was going to be an Amendment 3. Do you even know that yet?
It is.
So it's going to be Amendment 3.
Amendment 3.
But you don't know where it's going to be. You don't know yet. The governors decide that?
Well, it is written into HJR 73 that it's November of 2026, unless the governor changes it.
Because they can always monkey with. Nixon used to do that. He'd change when the elections were going to be.
Yeah, but I know Governor Kehoe wants us to win. He went out and helped and supported HJR 73.
Totally, yeah.
So
I think that was.
I think he's going to be looking at not. I mean, we'll share our polling with him as well. But you know, he's going to want to win for children.
You have exceptions in this ballot measure, correct?
There are exceptions.
What are the exceptions?
It still has the health of the mother and the life of the mother, but it also has rape and incest exception for 12 weeks. If there's a rape or an incest that occurs, up to 12 weeks. So you know, that was a hard thing to bite off for pro-life people. But we have to look at context. Where are we right now? The old Amendment 3, the pro-abortion Amendment 3 in our Constitution is abortion on demand, all 9 months of pregnancy. Any reasons?
And that's
women
good.
Can't sue. Women can't, have any kind of recourse.
You're logically going to eliminate 9 out of 10 abortions.
99%.
Yeah, that's. I didn't know what the number, but I had to be. Now, you know, you get into some issues with rape, and it gets a very complicated discussion. But I guess my question would be: do you think, as the person who knows more about this than anybody in this state, you could have taken the 2018 law and passed that in a statewide initiative?
We polled on that, and
What'd you
right
find
now it doesn't poll that a personhood amendment would pass.
I agree with that. That's what I have a sizable gut, and I agree with that.
We do believe absolutely life begins at conception.
Sure.
And fighting to protect that baby from the moment of conception is something that Missouri Life will never stop doing.
This ain't over,
But
right? No matter what, this isn't over.
And it never will be, till the end of time. So we're going to continue to fight. And we have a new kind of slogan kind of developing that we are going to protect the 99 and go after and protect the 1%. To work to do that.
But to me, that's what a leader has. I'm sure there's people that believe in you, that are members, that thought making those exceptions, they were against it, and that's what a leader has to do, right? You have to make that tough decision, and that's what leadership is, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. And sometimes we make the hard calls. Most of the time, on this issue, we make the hard calls. But you can't sit
speaking,
and watch
you weren't going to
baby.
pass something
that
didn't have those exceptions, right? You might have passed it without the trans language, but in reality, I guess that's my opinion. I think the trans language is very helpful in this, but I think you might have won without it. I don't think you win without those exceptions.
We're going to fight you can't sit and watch in our Constitution babies being killed.
Being a leader's tough.
Especially with the courts the way they are.
Sure.
You know, allowing babies to be killed all 9 months of pregnancy, even up to partial birth abortion.
Being the head of Missouri Right
and
to Life,
not do
having
anything.
every Republican in this state want your endorsement and want your support and cater to you, it's got to feel good. It's a wonderful thing. But the leadership is when you have to make the decision like that. Do we accept something with exceptions that we can pass, or do we go down a road that frankly success doesn't look all that great? That's tough. Tough choices.
If you look at Roe versus Wade, back in the in the 70s, whenever Roe passed, and all the laws that we've had to pass because the U.S. Supreme Court ruled badly on Roe, that we've been doing incrementalism all along this entire 50 years because of what the court told us we had to do. Now we've got in our Missouri Constitution and liberal judges telling us, you know, we're going to let abortion happen all 9 months of pregnancy. This is incremental in a different way.
I think the federal court system would be one of the things. I don't think any institution in this country is surviving all that great. The federal court system, I think, had hung on better than some until every time Trump changes his tie, they file some injunction and sue him. Trump's enemies are usually his best friends. They usually make for the most helpful. I mean, because if a federal judge had issued a ruling, I would have initially thought, okay. But when you do 3 a day against everything the man does, it's like, okay, come on now.
Right.
You know, at some point, I understand Trump is a disruptor and all that. Rub some dirt on it. I mean, everything can't be a federal court case, right?
Right. Well, and I think they've done everything to try to stop him from, you know, giving back to America, you know, make America great again, you know, make life important to us again.
No one's a bigger part of an establishment than someone that's selected by the President of the United States, confirmed by the United States Senate and a federal judge. That is the definition of the establishment. And so I think they must view any attack on the establishment, even if it's unrelated to them, as an attack on them. And I think it's very short-sighted. So there are exceptions. There is some transgender children language in there. You're hopeful for November. You mentioned Governor Kehoe. I view part of the reason that the polling shrank, and you made that good run, was 2 reasons. One, it's easier to get a no than a yes. In Missouri statewide ballot measures, if you can pick your side, you want to be on the no. It's almost like in the Missouri Senate, you want to be on the side of not passing something because it's the institute Missourians in their gut are set up to vote no, especially if they don't know much about it. And secondarily, Mike Kehoe got involved and raised a lot of money. He in this state, we don't have general elections really. We only have 2 coming up this year, and at least some in Independence, right? Or at least some in Springfield. Mike Kehoe, Crystal Quaid, very good candidate, but in this state, I mean, if Crystal was the Republican and Kehoe was the Democrat, she could have taken it easy last fall, right? And maybe focused on something. I felt like Mike Kehoe probably did as much work on the no on 3 as he did on his own race.
I think every pro-life legislator worked for us as well. I mean, they were putting up signs everywhere on the vote no, and you know. But even though we're now headed to a vote yes on Amendment 3, you got to look back at Clean and Cleaner Missouri.
Yep.
I mean, you know, that was an injustice that was done in Missouri, and the conservative Republicans stepped up to the plate, put that back out there, and worked really hard.
Let me ask you, what is right now? I mean, you endorsed Secretary Ashcroft, who came in 3rd in the primary. I would say there's times that folks in Missouri Right to Life have been critical of Mike Kehoe throughout his time in government. What is your relationship currently with the governor?
I think, you know, with his help with HJR 73, and we've had a few conversations where he walked into meetings during that time where HJR 73 was working through the process. I'm hoping that it is good. I think it's good. You know, we're open and have been watching everything that he's done positive as far as, you know, life issues go, and we're pleasantly encouraged with his work on our pro-life issues.
When I say the pro-life movement's divided, I guess my point would be 2 things. One, I view as a person that does not work for Missouri Right to Life, but I'll be honest with you, probably as sympathetic or more so than most people in the media to your overall objectives. I view Mike Kehoe as pro-life. I view Mike Kehoe as a winner. I view Mike Kehoe as a person that gets things done. Now, he does not tweet and Facebook all that much. He doesn't attack his colleagues all that much. but he actually wins and gets stuff done. I view him as pro-life. And when I say I view the movement as divided, to me, you two should be like this. And it feels like from your answer that what you said is nice, but it's not we're working together to make this happen. And I think Mike Kehoe is the number one person in this state. I mean, you're going to be outspent. The pro-choice folks are going to outspend you. If you can get it to 5-1, you've done a great job, right? But the only way you get to 5-1 or 4-1 or whatever your most optimistic outcome is, it's Mike Kehoe making those calls, right?
He's the head of the party for Missouri, so the Republican Party
and
for
the old boy
Missouri.
can raise money. I mean, you know.
Absolutely, and we appreciate everything that he did. I think during the legislative session, and I think it's because of him that and Senator Schnelting and everybody that worked on HJR 73. It took. Senator Cindy O'Loughlin, the Speaker of the House.
I mean, you're going
and
back.
the Majority Floor Leader.
I view
mean,
what
all
you
of them.
did as I viewed 2018. You talked about incrementalism. When you had people forming county chapters for life back after Roe. I mean, that was the culmination of 20-some years of work. You're the leader of that movement, but I mean, you're the leader because you have a bunch of people following you. I mean, if you're not have people following you, you're just taking a walk. So I think that was the culmination of all this incrementalism work. But I think Kehoe was also part of a lot of that when he was in the Missouri State Senate as lieutenant governor. You know, he wasn't a normal lieutenant governor. I mean, Mike Kehoe was the most influential lieutenant governor maybe when Peter Kinder first came in. But I would say Mike Kehoe is the most influential lieutenant governor I've seen because he knows how to get things done. What do you do? And when I say it's divided, I stood beside you, probably 4 feet from you in the gallery the last day of session. It had to be a little bit bittersweet because you were winning. I mean, the legislature was not going to adjourn until you won, and after you won, they was probably going to adjourn pretty quick afterwards. But you were going to win that day. The Missouri senators were going to do something that they didn't really like doing. They were going to break the free and fair debate of the Missouri Senate to pass your priority. But in doing so, you had half a dozen Republican senators, all of whom I think are pro-life, some of whom that was one of their top reasons they got involved, criticize Missouri right to life. When I say it's divided, I personally think, just my simple hillbilly opinion, you need every single person on board firing on all cylinders to get a yes. What you have is an amazingly difficult task, outfunded, a lot of headwinds against you. But I think it's doable. But to me, you got to have everybody on board. How do you go to folks and get them on board and get everybody singing from the same sheet of music?
I think you saw everybody on board. Even though there's a little bit of friction, I think you saw everybody on board.
That's
that
fair.
Last day of session. Otherwise, they wouldn't have called for the previous question. I think they know. And they're there. They want to protect innocent human lives. We don't always agree on the process and every single step.
How did it get there?
Yeah.
How did it get there?
How did they get to calling the previous question?
Well, no, I think they got there because all the work that the movement that you lead has done, and I think their own personal beliefs. But I mean, I think Connie Searpoy started Jackson Countyans for Life. I think Mary Elizabeth Coleman. If you just let her show up the days to vote on pro-life bills, she might only show up those days. I think some of those folks, how did it get there? I mean, what would your response be to some of the things that were said? Because, I mean, it had to be a little bittersweet. On one hand, you're accomplishing an amazing legislative feat that no other interest group really could pull off except yours. On the other hand, you have folks that are, I think, believers in your cause that were saying some negative things. What was your response, and what do you do? How do you? I think you need those people on board. I think Mary Elizabeth Coleman. I think women have to carry this. I just don't think people care what I think about abortion as much as they care what you think or what she thinks.
I think we're all looking at, first and foremost, what is the issue that we're fighting for? And we can say, as a Republican conservative family, we can be mad at each other. But at some point, we come back together and we go out because the people of Missouri are conservative. That's who voted our legislators in. That's who supports Missouri Right to Life. At some point, we come back together, and I think you saw that. even though it was
the
kind
vote
of
was the vote.
difficult on.
Hey,
you saw that
what are
on
you
the
gonna do?
last day of session. Ultimately we get past each other. Hopefully we can be friends. At some point, and I'm not opposed to that. I mean, I knock on their doors or
Well, you
walk in
kind of
their
need 'em.
offices.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, what is it going to take for us to protect women, protect these children from this transgender mutilation, and protect these babies from the horrendous abortions? And that's where we stand together.
You know what I think it comes down to at the end of the day? I think it comes down to the simple fact that your endorsement is the most influential one in politics. And I think some folks think they deserve it and have earned it, and they don't receive it. So explain to folks. I mean, I think there's the personalities, I agree, but I think that, this is politics. They care about what harmed them or helped them, and they care about, I really think it comes down in many ways to your endorsement and who you gave it to, who you didn't give it to. I think those are big, big things to politicians, and it's almost interesting. It's like it's like the last day of session. People don't get that mad when they don't get some other endorsements, but it's because they don't carry the weight. The ones that carry the weight have the bigger consequences. It's a bigger game because there's more on the line. Walk folks through how you decide who you're going to endorse in a state senate race.
So, how you get to that endorsement, and then I'll tell you how to get
Yeah.
to it. Is
Because this is the part people are going to actually watch in a
at-
big way.
Yeah, look at every piece of legislation. We analyze it. Does it have an effect? And it's not just a bill that talks about life, because there are other bills that have an effect on life, whether it's research or whether it's abortion.
You got into the redistricting.
Or end of life.
You got into the redistricting fight.
We did.
Is that one you'd rather have your marble back on today?
No, we believe in
If
what
you
we
would have
did.
known Amendment 3 was going to pass, would you have held your fire on that one?
No, we believe in what we did.
Okay.
Because it is very important for Missouri to maintain leadership in Washington as well as Missouri.
Do anything in Washington?
They do.
I don't. I mean,
Yeah, we have great congressmen.
Sam
and
Graves does
women.
bring a lot of money home.
You got Jason Smith, who's the chairman of the Ways and
Why don't we get in the
Ways
truck and go to the bridge he helped
you
build
get-
in southeast Missouri?
Well, you got to ask him.
I have.
So,
But bring back, because this is what people care about. Because
Okay,
I think it's personality's part of it, but I think it's the endorsement is where people, it's the thing that fires folks up. So walk folks through.
Well,
I don't mean to
an
interrupt you.
endorsement, the endorsements are not just made lightly. So you look at every piece of legislation. You decide if that piece of legislation needs some pro-life protection. It might just be a one-sentence pro-life protection. And it's not done lightly. There's a very fine line, where it says, can you prove that this would have an effect on life? And we walk that line. We look at that piece of we're not going to take a position.
Probably
on
lots of
another
House
issue.
members throw bills out to get your attention, so you'll say good job. But really, House members file a lot of bills.
Right.
Very few of them
We
matter.
look at them all.
Yeah.
And we look at the language. Is it going to have an effect in any of the areas that deal with life from conception all the way to the end of life? And so that's the beginning point of an endorsement whenever you become an incumbent, because you have guaranteed and talked to your constituents back home that you're going to stand for life no matter what pressures come your way, no matter what influences, or no matter how much money is thrown at anybody, any industry or anybody. So you guarantee that to your constituency back home. So that constituency back home are members of Missouri Right to Life. They want to know from us, how did your legislator vote? Or how did their legislator vote? And so what we're looking at, we don't make up the votes. All we do is take a position on what the language does based on a solid legal analysis, and if it's going to have an effect. And so then we get involved. Then a vote count happens one way or another. We let legislators know. Missouri Right to Life.
You do a good job of that.
Supports
Can't nobody
or
say you don't let them know.
opposes,
Yeah.
a piece of legislation. And so that's a beginning point, so that we make sure that everybody knows that whatever they're going to do, is up to them. But Missouri Right to Life is we're going to rate it. We're going to if it's something that we see is going to affect life, we're going to rate it one way or the other, and we let everybody know. So then at the end of session, all of those votes have happened. We compile those votes. We go back and look at, was a legislator missing for a reason? Did they have a health concern? Whatever.
Sure.
So we look at the entire thing. So we're not and we're trying to help them make good choices on life issues. So we'll give them research, we'll give them information, and make sure that they know our position. And so at the session is over, we now are looking back, looking at all those votes, looking to see if we need to ask any questions, where people were. And then right after every session, the Missouri Right to Life PAC meets. And the Missouri Right to Life PAC is made up of people from all parts of the state. Every congressional district has a Missouri Right to Life representative.
So like in Farm Bureau, if you want the endorsement in the 25th, all the Farm Bureau get together, and sometimes the chair, sometimes the group, and then they get together and quiz the people, and then they the local folks make the recommendation. You guys do it by congressional district?
We have congressional coordinators.
Okay.
So there's multiple steps.
Because there used to be county chairs of Right to Life, right?
There are still.
So there's still, okay.
Yeah, but there are several steps to an endorsement. One is the voting records are compiled. 2, surveys go out. Surveys go out to every legislator that's running that particular year because issues change. And so we want to make sure that they're still on board. We want to make sure that they're still talking to MRL. What's going on? What's happening? Are you still the same on all these issues now that you know a little bit more? Now that you've been in office. So we send out surveys to every legislator. Everybody has to have a survey returned each election cycle. And then we set up interviews. And we go out and we try to interview every candidate.
Who all do you bring to that?
It depends on the area. So if it's St. Louis, I go, Dave Clemens, our PAC chairman, goes.
How's old Dave
and
doing?
anybody in St. Louis.
I ain't seen him in a while.
So
doing all right?
He's doing great.
Good.
Yeah. So so it's not just 1 or 2 people. It is several people that go out and do an interview and sit down with the candidates or the incumbents again, saying what happened here. Why were you not with us on the vote? What happened? Was there some kind of communication failure or whatever? Now, does that happen with every single person? That's dependent upon what the PAC decides who we have to go out and interview. We also send out notices to particular areas. Tell us what you're seeing in your local newspapers. What are the candidates saying? We have people that go to the forums, listen to the candidates. What are they saying at these forums? What are they promising their people? So an endorsement meeting lasts several days, usually an entire weekend. We work early in the morning till late at night and until we're done. And if we have to, we'll come back the next weekend.
So if someone is running, maybe they're a member of the House, and they're going to run for state senate, and I'm just using Farm Bureau because I'm very familiar with it. Like, Farm Bureau came out and endorsed Kehoe, not quite as early as you made your endorsement, but in a primary, very early for Farm Bureau. This is a big deal for Farm Bureau. Where I live, Barry Bean is our guy. I think Barry was for this endorsement, and if you cared, I even shot him a text because you hear in the group things going on. I thought it was a great idea, and it worked out for Farm Bureau they pretty well. But if you're wanting to run, is it good to reach out to your Right to Life county chairs? Is it good to reach out to the members of the Right to Life? How much does the actual folks, they call them, everybody calls themselves grassroots anymore. The trial attorneys are grassroots apparently now, but does it help to reach out to the folks that you can you find out who those are? If you're the state representative and they call and say, okay, I don't know who the Butler County Right to Life chair is, and keep that person on site, can they help you get the endorsement?
Well, keep in mind, we also have laws that we have to abide by, and a chapter or a region cannot take a position on a candidate. So, they can, if they want to volunteer for the PAC, that chapter or region person can, talk, they can talk
Back
to
in the
their
day, Rose
candidate.
McDaniel was our, I know Rose
yeah.
is passed, but I'm in the Wayback Machine now. But I would say Rose could get folks on the phone because she was very dedicated, gave a lot of her time and money. I would say her opinion would matter, right? So do they reach out and call local folks, or is it just the congressional person has say, or how does that work?
It is best to start with the state office because that's where you get your survey. We will reach out to that particular local person. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't go talk to them. Absolutely.
Keep them involved.
Yeah.
So you reach out. I mean, it's kind of like the one thing I've done great that I do again, I should say, is I do this thing where I go around and do the history of each county. And so when somebody's running for office, I know who to call, 3 or 4 folks in each county, and I could, figure out, okay, well, if 3 of the people say this is a great person, the other one's bad, well, he might have married this guy's ex-sister-in-law,
Yeah.
but you can get a feel. You have that same ability to reach out and call someone in Butler County and say, okay, how's Hardy Billington doing?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're thinking about endorsing, where's he at, what's he been like to work with? Those things matter as well?
They do. I mean, we listen to the people in the particular districts, where the candidate or the incumbent is representing those people. That's the people that we go and talk to.
I'm going to pitch you where I think the rub is. Now, I was in there. I heard all the things said on the Senate floor. The rub to me is you got a couple folks who maybe they're House members, maybe it's an incumbent senator, and they voted what they consider to be pro-life. And they think, well, I've been involved in the pro-life movement. I've done these things. How do you pick if I'm not mistaken, sometimes you'll endorse 2, right? Or back in the day you used to.
Well, if you're an incumbent, you have a good pro-life voting record based on the issues that have come before the body of the House and the Senate, then you're going to get a single endorsement. If you've got a good voting record with Missouri Right to Life.
What if you got 2? Because, look, you've got a great job. You've built an amazing wall of success here. Most House members, when it comes up for a vote, are going to vote with you, right? I don't see a lot of them not.
They're voting with Missouri Right to Life, but they're really voting on the truth of the issue, and that's where Missouri Right to Life is standing. So,
well,
yes, they're voting with Missouri Right to Life.
How do you pick when you got 2?
Now, as you're talking an open seat.
Yeah.
Obviously, that comes.
That's
sometimes
tough, right?
There's a dual endorsement. Sometimes there might be a triple or a quadruple endorsement. It depends. But that's an open seat. If we have one of those candidates that maybe have some exceptions, or they've written some things on their survey that may or may not necessarily it's like if they say I'm going to be with you on this, but I won't be with you on that. And then on the survey, there's questions about, abortion. There's questions about end-of-life issues, about research. So we might call a person or all 4 of them and kind of have a discussion about the issues. Where are you? What do you mean by you support, open-ended research or your end-of-life decisions?
Well, that research issue gets pretty complicated,
It is complicated.
Yeah.
So that interview process, if we get through that with 2 or 3 or 4 candidates, and they all are good on life, then we'll endorse all of them. But if there is somebody who's not good on one of the issue or the other, then the PAC will have to. It's not done easy. There's a lot of discussion that goes on before we end up doing a single endorsement in a race. What are the dynamics? And it's not across the board. Every race is not the same.
I've seen you treat them all there. Denny Hoskins, I can't, in a race where who knows how he won or why. He was sole endorsed candidate, right? It matters. I think that's why you saw the emotion. At the end of the day, you saw half a dozen folks who not only have been with you, we're going to be with you. We're going to end the free and fair debate of the Missouri Senate to be with you. Did you take away anything from that?
I appreciate them and thank them for what they did.
Yeah.
Because we all, on that day, we all knew that the outcome was to get rid of the abortion amendment, all 9 months of pregnancy, that's in the Constitution. And as a family of conservatives, we had to come together, even though we have differences, we had to come together to ultimately protect women, protect these children,
but I agree.
and protect babies.
They were going to not only vote with you.
So I appreciate everything that they did that day.
Well,
and I know what the cost of that was.
But they not only were going to end the free and fair, they were going to vote with you. Everybody was. They were going to end the free and fair debate of the Missouri Senate to do so. When they had those things, would you and Dave and your crew and your staff get together after that? I'm sure you felt, first of all, you had to feel relieved and happy that you'd had an enormous legislative success. Again, I'll say a success I don't think any other interest group could have pulled off. But when you sit down and thought about it a couple weeks later, was any of that, did that make any of you and your staff say, okay, we should listen to this and we should think about maybe some of the approaches here? Because these are folks that have been with you a long time. And and their voting records, if I had to guess, were pretty strong pro-life. Um, when you got to process that, did it make you say, well, maybe we need to look at some things?
We always have done that. An endorsement lost is not lost forever. People can, turn around what the differences that we have. We can turn that around. It just depends on whether everybody's willing to have an open, fair discussion in private.
I've personally seen a difference in Missouri Right to Life since Amendment 3 passed. I think sometimes, not only Missouri Right to Life, I think I've seen a difference in the Right to Life movement. Sometimes when you win, it's just natural. The out of power party in the presidency always has a good midterm, historically. When you get that cold, you had won it. I don't even know how you could win any more than you'd won in 18. And then you turn over. I've seen a sense of urgency, I guess is the best way to put it, since November of 2024. Really, since about the middle of September of 2024, there's been an urgency. And is the urgency what you're relying on, which comes from passion and belief, but the urgency to turn this around is what's going to congeal the pro-life movement back together for its biggest fight maybe ever?
Well, the next big fight. There's always, anytime you deal with life issues, it's a big fight.
But I mean, you're fighting from underneath, right?
Right.
You're the
and
underdog.
I think again, we'll come back together. I think again, you saw it on the last day of session, that we came together, and I think we have a commitment, from all conservatives in office, to help us win this issue.
What's that going to look
important.
like? Well, what's it going to look like? Because I mean, John Lamping, who is my favorite curmudgeon. I love following him on Twitter, even when he's giving me grief. It only makes me feel like I'm part of the human race because he gives everyone grief. He brought up the point. You're getting outspent 20-1. Lots of folks are sitting on a lot of money. That I understand it's tough. You want to use that money to further your career. But in a way, I mean, you might further your career a little more by giving a little bit of that to this cause. It might show a deeper level of commitment. There's lots of retired politicians that say they're pro-life sitting on lots of money. That, I mean, what can folks do? If you want to put a bow on all this, what could you do if you're a legislator, if you're just a person watching this that's active in politics? If you're not interested in politics, you're on the wrong channel. You should probably watch something about the Cardinals. But if you're interested in politics, you're a legislator. What do you do to help? I mean, you're the leader of this. If you get a pair of hands and say, what can I do? What do you have them do?
Well, Missouri Right to Life polled. We poll a lot.
Which
just
costs
to make
money.
Sure, it does. It costs a lot of money. In the polling, it shows that Missouri Right to Life is the name that people trust in the state of Missouri when it comes to life issues.
That's clearly true.
So, we're going to be fighting this battle again. It takes a lot of money. All of the vote no side, the pro-life side, we had about $5 million altogether.
Do you get a lot of, I mean, the pro-choice folks get a ton of out-of-state money.
They do.
Do you get out-of-state money?
Yes, we did get some out-of-state money. But
my assumption is it probably doesn't compare much to what they got.
No, and people were concerned.
What do you think the percentage of out-of-state money was for their total pot?
80%.
80%?
Yeah. Let's see. It was
I guess I've never looked at it close enough. 80%.
80% was out-of-state money. So on their side.
Yeah.
So that's not our. That wasn't our side.
What was yours? It had to be
way less than that. Yeah.
So the National Right to Life or pro-life causes did see this as a battleground to fight.
They do help us.
Okay.
Yes. And they were working multiple states in 2024.
So what you can do in 2025, it sounds like, is give money.
Absolutely, we need money. We've got a year and we've got more time in this battle, but we need money.
So I noticed you did this. To me, it almost felt like you want to, cut your hay while the sun shines. You wanted to get it. You want to get that hay in the barn, as Robert Odell used to say, so that you can. Do you think more time helps you or helps them?
I think more time helps us.
I kind of agree with that.
They're going to have money no matter what. But this gives us. I mean, we developed a
lot of folks said you were wrong. I think you were right about that because I watched how. I mean, it's got to be challenging to organize all these churches. I mean, now you start with the better slate than you started with 2 years ago or a year ago, right?
Absolutely, we got a team already in place.
And they should be a little more in an urgent, state of mind. But just kind of going through it. Right now, you need money to get prepared, and then you need folks to. You're going to do doors. What does it look like to get active next year?
We will do everything that we did last time, and hopefully we'll have more. I mean, we met them head on. You look at streaming, you look at newspaper, you look at radio, you look at literature, you look at boots on the ground. We had a lot more than they did. We're going to do everything that we did before.
Is it a little harder for you though when you talk about boots on the ground? Because their boots need to be in 3 towns, maybe throw Springfield in, but really the folks they need live in apartment buildings. They live right beside each other. Your folks live out on gravel. I mean, to me, it's a little harder to collect your chickens because they're spread all over the state. Their chickens are in 3 coops right down I-70. Pretty much, if you benefited from the special session, you're the pro-choice folks. It's a little harder for your folks because if a person in rural Missouri turns out, they're probably voting for you. But you got to get them to turn out, right?
Well, yeah,
that's what you said. That's why. Is that why you're saying it would have been easier in a presidential year than an off year? Because a lot of rural don't show up in an off year.
Well, it's just when you look at the history of elections in Missouri, a presidential year is a higher turnout.
Yeah.
Midterms always kind of sometimes counter the incumbency in Washington. We'll see if that affects us or not, but we'll work, either way. It's good for us to do November as opposed to August, but we need the time to raise some money because whether it ends up in August or
their
November,
campaign. Their campaign is a little written for them. The voters pass something, the politicians overturning it. You're losing your rights and all this. Their campaign is probably going to be somewhat similar with a little added kick than it was last fall. I don't think they're going to do a lot of that organizing. They're going to outspend you on television massively, right? And that's their game plan.
Well, and that's the only place that they beat us was on TV or streaming. They were able to do their ads 6 times where we were able to do ads 1 time.
I don't think I'd change a thing about that campaign you're in.
So we're going to run the same
For the
campaign.
odds you were setting, I thought you punched very well to get, but the no was easier.
The money will allow us to do the repetitive messaging.
Yeah.
And that repetitive messaging and countering their lies that they going to tell again. They're not going to be able to tell.
You almost have to have Mike Kehoe raise that money, right?
Well, if you look at Florida, Governor DeSantis was very outspoken. And I do believe that Governor Kehoe will be the same way in this new campaign.
It's not just outspoken, though. I mean, that phone that Mike Kehoe carries on that paper plate, that's worth millions of dollars. That to me, the lifeblood of this campaign is 2 things. It's your organization, organizing churches, and the groundwork he can do. And then that's that cell phone and paper plate of Mike Kehoe. Is those 2 things have to come together in order for you to win this, right?
Right. I believe that. I believe all of the legislators, from all parts of the states.
I used to roll my eyes at that. I'm glad you brought up the Cleaner Missouri, because how many times for years we hear, the legislators are going to get involved. I'm like, oh, who cares? They always say that. They don't. I don't know what else. I think the number one reason Cleaner Missouri passed was, especially House members, got very organized and engaged in that. It was a very effective effort in a race that they didn't have a lot of money.
Right.
And they got a yes.
Right.
Which, I think if I'm you, that makes me feel a lot better. But if without the Cleaner Missouri win, I'm like, when does a person that's been outspent get a yes?
Right.
That would be the time.
Right. It'll
Relatively
take all
recently.
of us. It'll take all of us. Missouri Right to Life, every other life group that's in Missouri, the support from the national groups.
What is those relationships like with other life groups?
It's very good.
Do you guys talk? I don't know. I've never really asked what. Do you guys stay in contact and coordinate?
We do. We have, in the last campaign, we had monthly life leaders meetings. We don't tell the other organizations what to do. That is, they have built their organization. We respect what they've done. And all we do is we provide polling. We provide opportunities for boots on the ground, phone banking, and messaging, yard signs. And that's why we need some money. We got to produce all these things that all the different groups use. The churches take the look and may put their signs out that don't necessarily say paid for by Missouri Life PAC, but they have the same look as some of the things that we do.
I did see some very well-intentioned people.
Yeah, just to protect their tax liability.
Yeah.
So so we were a unified body, and there were a lot of legislators that helped us with yard signs.
Well, you can see why a person that's not trying to ask a jerk question would say, when you look at some of the individuals that have spoken out, that says you could be more of a congealed unit. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not. I don't think people can disagree, and I certainly respect that. But I don't think it's an insane thing to watch what we both watched the last day of session, and think, okay, there's a little division here. But to your point, they complained, and then they went and voted for a PQ and for the bill. So the scoreboard's a scoreboard. The complaints will go away with time.
Yeah.
Those votes are the lasting point. I see your point there.
Those votes were huge.
Yeah.
They're huge, and that's going to make a huge difference with the Missouri to Life PAC. But you saw that day, we were unified. We were standing against the abortion industry. We didn't necessarily maybe like each other at that moment and things that were happening, but we didn't dislike one another. We disliked the killing of babies and the abuse of women that the abortion industry does. That's what you saw, that we all came together and stood against the abortion industry. We weren't standing against each other. We were standing against the abortion industry. And I think you're going to see that whenever we get together and we all go out and work to get a yes vote and do the voter turnout. And it will take the legislators doing that in their own districts as well.
So the moral of the story, huge win this year. Big task ahead of you.
We didn't even talk about the other wins.
What you got?
That you can't use foreign money.
I've used my time. I asked you for some on your time. You tell me what you got.
You can't use foreign money. To come in.
What if we didn't let you use out-of-state money in Missouri elections? How great would that be? Kick the Federal Society out.
I don't know how you'd police that.
We build a wall on the Mississippi to keep all the Washington people out of Missouri. And we make them pay for it.
I don't know how you'd police that. But
I got some buddies with some shotguns in Butler County that'd probably get it done.
So no foreign monies in our ballot issues. So that's the AG's right on top of that. The ability for the Attorney General, he's doing a fabulous job.
I mean, he just don't lose.
Fighting against the court.
I honestly don't know that you have enough to kick the sheriff of the city of St. Louis out. He's only been there a few months. But when has Bailey lost?
He's done some amazing things.
Good Lord.
Yeah, and he continues to. And, he's fighting
Isn't it bizarre?
Most recent judges.
The guy honestly, I've known him for a while. I've known him since he became the general counsel for Parson. So it's not really that long ago. A dude that didn't run for city council even. He come out of the gate great at this. He beat all of New York and Washington and every county in this state, outspent. I mean, that should make you feel good. Yeah. Andrew Bailey beat all the foreign money. The old war hero from Herman beat all of them.
Yeah. I think, Missouri's a good place to be. Attorney General Bailey's doing a great job protecting women, children, and babies.
I heard him give that speech at your rally.
As well as multiple other things.
That speech at your rally was so good. I was trying to park, and I seen him talking. I rolled the window down. And it was such a fine line. For a man to talk about some of these things can be challenging. To come off authoritative, forceful, pro-life, but not be a jerk about it. That dude, man.
So that bill that allowed him to go back and appeal the decision by the judge on the health and safety standards, Senate Bill 22, Senator Bratton's bill, was an excellent bill. So that was another good thing. And of course, I can't not mention the baby incubator bill, Representative Jim Murphy's bill.
I love Jim Murphy.
He is kind of
Irish charmer.
Watched that and carried that bill all the way through.
What's that do?
From the very beginning. So
you get my attention. Say Jim Murphy, I'm in.
Yeah. So he extended, so you could drop off a baby in one of these baby incubators that you could find at one of the firehouses around Missouri. There's going to be more of them coming because of what the legislature did.
Do people really do that? Like I've seen on movies that they'd wrap up a baby and leave it at the firehouse.
Yeah.
I guess because folks are up all night.
Well, and there's no questions asked. Originally, it was 45 days that people could drop off a baby. Now it's 90 days. No questions asked. It's
I got one that's
I believe it's Jefferson
15. How's that work? No, I'm just kidding. But
so the legislature was.
Did the people do
we
that,
had
though?
a great year. They do. It was all on the front page of our newsletter.
Well, maybe they'll do it more now. What a cool.
And they obviously funded alternatives to abortion funding. And then Representative Murphy's bill also has making adoption easier. There was an adoption fund set up. People in Missouri have been asking for years, can you make adoption a little bit more affordable for people to do? And House Bill 121 does that. So it was a really good year for life. Obviously we've got our challenges ahead with amendment.
Well, now that Habas is retired, I'd feel safe dropping the baby off at a firehouse. But when Habas was there, Pattonville, I don't know. I think I'd went somewhere else. But that's a cool bill. I guess I'd heard about it, but it did not garner some of the. I mean, when you talk about abortion in session, your last day of session took a lot of the oxygen in that room.
It did. It did.
So, the moral of the story is big win.
Big win.
Good session.
A great big thank you to the senators.
You've got a heck of a fight on your hands the next 18 months. I think you're the underdog in that fight. And if folks are pro-life, you need money this year.
We do.
And you need money and time next year. MissouriLife.org. And
we also have a big banquet coming up if you want to register.
Where's it at?
Laura Trump is going to be our keynote
speaker.
That's
cool.
And it's in St. Charles on September the 8th.
Where at?
At the St. Charles Convention Center.
So how many of those a year do you have? Do you have?
We have one big one in St. Louis, and then we have a little one in Springfield and a little one in Kansas City.
Lord Trump.
Oh, and there's one also up in Moberly, Mexico.
Lord Trump had to set you back a little bit, didn't it?
She's going to be a great speaker.
Yeah, well, that's a big get, right?
And it's a big win with the big beautiful bill. She'll be able to bring some information home to us.
You got that one. Ivanka seems impressive. The son's, but she seems very impressive.
She is. She's super sweet. She did a special message. We just had a meeting, and she did a special message where she spoke to Missourians.
And but the reason I even text you. You get to say I told you so, even if you're not going to do it. I'll say you did tell people that you could defund Planned Parenthood, and scoreboard. You were right.
We need to.
You're not going to say it. I'll say it. She was right.
We need to defund the abortion industry. They don't need our tax dollars to kill babies. We just.
Well, I think most folks agree with you, but I think there was honest disagreement on the public policy point, and when it was adjudicated all the way to the Supreme Court said you were right. Trust me, if that were me, I'd be insufferable for about a month. Like people wouldn't even take my calls.
I wish it would have been Missouri at the U.S. Supreme Court because we're the show me state, and we should have.
Well, if you'd have had Bailey on it, you'd have won. I'd have bet on you.
I agree.
It'd be like the horses and the jockeys. You would have. Yeah. I don't know that there's a person I've seen in politics that has a house of fire like Andrew Bailey. That dude.
And you can tell it's from the heart.
I think you can tell.
He has a great pro-life story too.
Oh, he does. I mean, it's one of those things. To me, when you do the things his family's done, I mean, look, your issue is very popular in this state. A lot of people preen and peacock and want attention because of that, and it's a very strong lobby. Boy, I think though when you've done the things that his family's done, I'm like, well, you're not. That's not bragging. That's you back up. You practice what you preach, in a way I respect. A great deal. I do think it makes you more authoritative because I think it's very easy to dismiss a man on some of these issues, but a man with his family's background, I mean, him and his wife, I think, can talk about this issue anytime they want to. I think that matters.
It does.
And you're still not going to say it, but you did tell folks so. I mean, is what it is.
We did.
I always enjoy the visit. I took more time than I asked for. Thank you so much for making the time. I can't wait to tell people. I'm going to get Kelton to tell the timestamp. Okay, if you're asking about the endorsement, just go to whatever, 50 minutes, 12 seconds, or whatever. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you, Scott.
Got to thank our sponsors, the Courtyard by Marriott. If you're coming to town to give money to Susan, stay at the Courtyard by Marriott. Put your family up somewhere nice if you love them. And the best rural broadband in all of us are up in the great Northwest, as Senator Hageman would say, at United Fiber. Thank you all so much. We'll be back maybe later in the week, maybe Sunday. We had a great opinion maker panel. We have the Prince of St. James, Jack Cardetti. Ellinger and Bell will be represented here. And the first time on the show, Chelsea Rodriguez with the Missouri Democratic Party. Sunday on This Week in Missouri Politics.